Greetings, Diminished fans. We got yet more Diminished. All right, this time chords, because Diminished chords is a big thing. Again, another complex subject. So what I'm trying to do is take this and break it down into some sort of way that makes sense, so that I can cover a large span of chords. So let's get right into it. First off, the basic diminished chords, which are read out first in tab, which we generally do. So we're in A7. This is the diminished stuff for dominant chords, and we'll just stay on A7 to keep it the least confusing. So off of the bright diminished notes, which is the A diminished 7 arpeggio, which is the 3rd, C sharp, E the 5th, G the flat 7, and the flat 9, B flat. That's the A7. It's also C, E flat, and F sharp. But watch the other videos to, So, off of those notes, we do our basic diminished chords, which are read out from the 6th string. So B flat, C sharp, E on this string, C sharp, slightly different fingering, E, G, and on the top string, E, G, and B flat. Now, the way diminished works is all of these bright diminished notes, you can play another diminished arpeggio a half step below it. So we have that one, plus we can start from A, and that forms the scale. So what that means is all of these diminished chords, you can also play one step down of what I call dark diminished. So off of A, C, E flat, or F sharp. And technically, that's correct. A lot of times too, what's cool to do if you're in a swing type feel is to take your diminished chord, and then you can just drop it down. So say I'm on the G, like an A7, B flat down to A, works here, C sharp, C, C, or you could leave out the middle note. It makes it a little easier to finger. So I'm just playing this little structure: 4, 5, C sharp, G, E flat. That way you can kind of go. So here's the E minor 7, and now this. So those are diminished chords. Now, that's just the beginning, though. Those are just the literal diminished chords. Now we also have a lot of other stuff. So off of the bright, let's go to the bright notes: C sharp, E, G, B flat, and go to the 5th string. Polychords. There's a lot of polychords in diminished theory. So off of these bright notes, and it's fairly easy to think of these notes when if you have an A7 chord, it's pretty easy to see in your mind the 3rd, the 5th, the flat 7, and then of course the flat 9. So off of these chords, a popular chord to play is off of these notes is this polychord, where you play the note and then we're putting a major triad on the next 3 strings. So this would be like an E/E flat. So I'll have these in tab off of B flat, C sharp, E, and G. Now you can do them off of the bottom string. The fingering changes, of course. And you could do them off of that would look like that. And then off the top string, you see this one a lot, there's G, and then an F sharp triad. B flat with an A triad. Or E. Alright, so there's those. Now sticking with polychords. That's the most common polychord you see in diminished, but there's another one that we play off of the dark notes. So that would be A, C, E flat, or F sharp on this chord. And this one is we play the dark note, and then we do the major triad on the next 3 strings down. So it would be E flat with a C, F sharp with a E flat, A with an F sharp, So that's the polychord played off the dark diminished notes. And again, you can transpose it to the other strings, but for starters, if this is new, it's the easiest to look at the fifth string. So you get your bright notes, you know those. So you say we're up here, the G. First we can play in some type of E minor 7 off the G. Then go to the polychord off the G, A7, and then resolve it. D with the F sharp in the bass. Then we go to this position, E minor 7, A7, something over here, E minor 7, and then our D. Alright, so we got the polychord off the bright diminished, polychord off dark diminished. Now, also dark diminished, the other chord you can play is the Hendrix chord, dominant 7 sharp 9. So that works off of A, obviously in A, but also off of F sharp, E flat, and C, all in the A. So here's our E minor 7. Then we can drop down and play the E flat 7 sharp 9 Hendrix chord, or C, or F sharp, and then let it resolve to something D major 7. So those are two polychord off the bright, polychord off the dark diminished, minor 7 flat, dominant 7 sharp 9 off of that. Next, what else do we got? Now some triad stuff. I see these a lot, so these are worth pointing out. These are chords where we have a triad, and then we want to add to it a note that doesn't fit. So it's sort of another polychord, but this is one I see on the top 3 strings, so I'm showing it that way. So let's take a little A triad, and we're adding the flat 9 to it, but in kind of a weird way. We're putting it in the bass. So we have a little triad here, A, E, C sharp. Here we're putting the B flat in the bass. So it's just an A 7 flat 9, but it's a cool voicing. It's a very unique diminished. But what makes it diminished is, of course, we can move it 3 frets. So in A, we can start it with the F sharp triad, and it's still an A. We do it off C or off E flat. So here's our E minor 7. There's the A, done off the F sharp. So those I'll write all those out. Now another triad is going to the second, third, and fourth string. Here's an F sharp triad. We're going to add the flat 9 to it, but we're going to do it in the same octave as the F sharp. So we'll get this. So we bring it up to A triad. That's a nice. Resolve to D. Oh, another one I see a lot. Same triad, F sharp. Instead of reaching down for the flat 9, we can go right here and add the sharp 9. That's a great diminished chord. So again, that would move to the. So we're doing it here off the F sharp triad. So we do it on the E flat triad, the A triad, put the sharp 9 on top, the C. So these triads, all of this stuff these triadic ones that I'm doing, we're using the 4 triads in diminished scale. the 4 major triads though. It's an A7 diminished, but we have an A triad. Every 3 frets we have a triad. So we also have C, E flat, and F sharp. So we can take those triads. You know, there's our A, put the flat 9 on the bottom, C, flat 9 on the bottom, F sharp triad, flat 9 on the top, or sharp 9, A, flat 9 on the top, sharp 9 on the top. They all make nice diminished chords, and so we can move them every 3 frets. Alright, last part of this stuff is, I just call this tritone. What it is take our A, we're in A, so we'll take our A and we'll just add the tritone chord to it. So the tritone of A is E flat. Boom. So there's an E flat right here. So 5, A, adding E flat. That makes a nice chord. Here's our E with B in the bass, E minor 7. We could just keep the A in the bass and resolve to D. Alright, next we have an E flat right here. We'll put the little A triad up here on top. A triad on the top right there. Boom. I'll have those in tab. We have an A note here, so we could add the E flat just like that. And then let's take E flat right there. Put the little A triad up here on the 9th fret. Makes a nice chord. So we'll get E minor. Resolve to D with A and on top. Now, there's other spots you can, do it to. You could look, there's E's and A's there, but that's the basic idea, is to put the tritones together. And of course, you could also do it in C. So I could play C and put the F sharp and use that over A7. So we'd have an E minor. And then on the A, that type of thing. So that covers a pretty wide spectrum of diminished chords, from polychord stuff, a way to organize it, using bright and dark diminished notes. I used to sit down and practice it, and I'd say, okay, A7. I already know the diminished chords. Those are the easiest to remember, right? But these polychords, I'd say, okay, bright diminished, B flat, do that one, C sharp A, then dark diminished, do this one. Dark diminished, you can also play minor 7 flat 5, and then transpose it to the top string. And then I'd start looking at triads. Okay, A, I can add the flat 9. C, there's the flat 9 of C. Then I'd take a different triad, F sharp triad, add that flat 9, add that. Let's go to A, add the flat 9, add the sharp 9. And there's other triads, so you can look for triads. Just take a triad somewhere, like an A. And now think about, in diminished, the notes would be flat 9, or sharp 9, or tritone, and that's a good way to make a diminished chord. So we have this A triad. In this case, there's the tritone that makes a nice diminished chord. There's the sharp 9, the C, you put in the bass, so that makes a cool diminished chord. There's an A. Let's keep this A chord. There's a C up there, the sharp 9, so there's another diminished chord. There's the B flat, so we'll finger it like this. There's another diminished chord. So we're taking the basic triads and finding, ways to add sort of outside notes, the flat 9, sharp 9, and tritone. That would make it. Then all those chords can be moved every 3 frets. And then you can take this A triad and say, okay, what can I do? I can add the C there. I can add the E flat over here. And they all become diminished triads. And then, of course, you can add 2. You could also try and stick in, once you get a chord like that, you could say, okay, now could we also add the F sharp to give it more tension? You can experiment and look for chords that you like within the diminished scale. Or just take basic triads and, there's another example. There's an A triad. There's the E flat. A7. Whoops. D. And every 3 frets it's still an A. So E flat with A on top, F sharp with C. They're all A chords. So, you know, you got to sit down and pick out the stuff you like the sound of the best and then work it in there. It's a pretty, you know, there's a lot of diminished chords. And there's even more than this, too. But that covers a pretty wide spectrum. So until next time. Rock on. We'll see you next time.